I am Bobby, and welcome to part 2 of my scene-by-scene review of the 1931 version of Dracula. And I hope you're ready for a ride, because tonight it is Transylvania or Bust. Using the DVD scene selection, I am reviewing every scene in Dracula. Last time, I did those monstrous main titles. But tonight is Chapter 2, A Night of Evil. Here we are introduced to Transylvania, and the villagers warn the real estate agent Mr. Renfield not to go to Dracula's castle. No country in the world has ever been associated with horror like Transylvania has. When you hear the word, you don't think of the real place. You think of Dracula. And this is the classic on-screen depiction. When Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, he never visited Transylvania. But he did extensive research, using altogether 30 books to write Dracula. And one of them was The Land Beyond the Forest by Emily Gerard. This is where he learned the term Nosferatu. He learned about Transylvanian geography, its people, and its superstitions, including restless spirits called the Strigoi, werewolves, and vampires. According to Gerard, these people believe themselves to be surrounded on all sides by a whole legion of evil spirits. The devils are further assisted by witches and dragons, and to all dangerous beings are ascribed peculiar powers on particular days. You see, Transylvania really swings. Bram took that information and created a Transylvania in his own imagination. Then the filmmakers took that and made their own version, and made it the perfect home for Count Dracula. The real Carpathian Mountains are green and beautiful. But these Carpathian Mountains are a matte painting done by John Fulton. They're rocky, treacherous, and especially in black and white, have this bizarre and spooky aura. In the carriage, there was Dwight Fry as the real estate agent Renfield, a villager and his wife, a matronly woman, and her secretary, played by Carla Laemmle, the niece of Carl Laemmle, the owner and founder of Universal Studios. And when reading a tourist brochure, she says the opening line: "Among the rugged peaks that crown down upon the Boro Pass are found crumbling castles of a bygone age." I think the first line is always important, but especially with Dracula, because remember, the first sound movie had only come out 3 years before. Dracula was the first supernatural thriller ever done in sound. So people had to have been excited. What scary things are we going to hear? And I love how it's worded poetically. It helps you visualize Transylvania. And it foreshadows Dracula's castle. Also, because of the book Dracula is made up of journal entries, letters, newspaper articles, it fits the novel's style that the first line is being read from a brochure. What's so striking about this scene is how terrified these villagers are of Dracula. Tonight's going to be Walpurgis Night, which is a night when witches perform a Sabbath. And we can assume, based on the villagers and Gerard's book, that Dracula is going to be especially powerful. "Oh no! We must reach the inn before sundown. It is Walpurgis Night, the night of evil, Nosferatu. On this night, madame, the doors they are barred, and to the Virgin we pray." While all the villagers are uncredited, each one brings so much personality to their roles. The innkeeper and his wife have this warmth. Some are speaking Hungarian, which gives authenticity. And through their eyes, you can feel the fear coming from each one. The villager and his wife cross themselves in the carriage. Then the scene shifts to the village, where a woman is praying. Unless you speak Hungarian, you can't tell what they're saying, but you can hear the concern and desperation in their voices. There was even a baby playing with wolfbane, which is a vampire repellent, and the mother puts it back by her baby's neck. And remember, in the book, Dracula feeds a baby to his brides. Right outside the village, there's a huge cross, and when they close the gate, it looks like a cross too. So their fear of Dracula is a constant and consuming part of their lives. There's also two women staring out of the window. One is old and looks scared, as if wisdom has come with age and she knows the true evil of Dracula. And the other is young and looks more intrigued, and she very slowly closes the window, as if she knows that Dracula is evil, but is also attracted to him, because this Dracula is a sexual being. Then Renfield gets out of the carriage and says that he's going to meet the Count. Scared for him, the innkeeper warns against it.
The driver, he is afraid of Walpurgis Night. Good fellow he is. He wants me to ask if you could wait and go on after sunrise.
Well, I'm sorry, but there's a carriage meeting me at Borgo Pass at midnight.
Borgo Pass? Whose carriage?
Why, Count Dracula's.
Count Dracula? Castle Dracula? The castle? No, you mustn't go there. We people of the mountains believe at the castle there are vampires. Dracula and his wives, they take the form of wolves and bats. When it is night, they leave their coffins and feed on the blood of the living.
But that's just superstition. I can't understand.
Look, the sun is setting. Come, we must go indoors.
This was the first American movie about real vampires, so unlike today, most of the audience wouldn't know this. But regardless, the fear that Michael Visseroff projects makes this exposition compelling and vivid. The innkeeper warns him, his wife gives him a cross, and Renfield appreciates it. But he's from London, a very sophisticated city, and he dismisses it as the superstitions of a very kind-hearted but simple people. And he goes on with his journey, leaving the villagers weeping, knowing he will meet his doom. In the book, it's Jonathan Harker who's the real estate agent going to Dracula's castle. But because the play didn't do the Transylvanian scenes, that aspect was removed from his character. And in order to reinstate the Transylvanian scenes, without having to drastically rewrite the scenes based on the play, they just had Renfield do it instead. Now in the book and play, Renfield is already under Dracula's power when we meet him. So this fleshes him out. And Dwight Frye comes across as such a gentle and kind soul that you have instant sympathy for him. Dwight Frye was actually the first person cast for the movie. And while Bernard Jukes had very successfully played Renfield in England and on Broadway, I wonder if this new dimension to the character is why they went with Frye instead. Transylvania is one of the most memorable and iconic things from the movie. Even if you haven't seen it, everyone knows that's where Dracula lives. And everything in this country, from the people, to the village, to even the mountains, seems so haunted by the Count. As if the country itself is a haunted house, and instead of ghosts, it's vampires. Even though you're only there for a few minutes. Because the buildings are so groovy looking, because there's ducks walking around to give it life, and because the people care about each other and are so happy when the carriage comes in before sundown, it feels like a real community. But because it's in black and white, and on the Universal back lot, and it has this atmosphere, and the acting and the writing are heightened, it doesn't seem like a place that's really on this earth. It feels like a fantasy land, like a Neverland or an Oz. It's a place that can only be found in horror stories. A place where vampires and monsters can really exist. And I think that's why it's so enchanting, and why it captures our imagination. There's the real Transylvania that's now part of Romania, and then there's Universal's Transylvania. Even the monsters come from there. Where else would they come from? For those interested in Bram Stoker's Dracula research, the London Library has 25 of the 30 books that he used, including his own copy of The Land Beyond the Forest. Carla Laemmle became a horror icon in her own right because of her appearance in Dracula and her association with Universal Horror. She received fan mail until she died, appeared at conventions, and often recited her famous line. While Bernard Jukes missed out on playing Ranfield in the film, he did get his own horror legacy, because his image of Ranfield was used for one of the most famous covers of famous monsters of filmland. Though he is far from the only one, Dracula gave Michael Visceroff his signature screen role. He also played the scared innkeeper in Todd Browning's Mark of the Vampire, and a similar part in Todd Browning's Freaks. In Chapter 2, we are introduced to the most horrifying country in the world. Tune in next time when we go to the evil heart of that country, Chapter 3, The Castle. Until then, pleasant nightmares.